making a video. I think it's just a lot of distractions. Anyway, iQuest. Annoying. The minute physics video is misleading. It does not take quantum mechanics, hidden variables, and high-level math of Bell's theorem to fully explain the triple polarizer paradox. Alright, so there's this minute video, and the weird thing is that Miles Mathis also did a commentary on it, and now this DeCinti guy. And they don't explain anything. You know, they don't. I mean, saying it's a cosine function. Well, how does saying it's a cosine function explain why when you stick a third filter in, you know, somehow it works better? You know, without conceding that the only way this could happen is that it's got to be changing the orientation of the light to make it get through the last filter. I mean, you have a filter here, you know it cuts out 50%. You know all this stuff isn't getting through and only this stuff is getting through. So you know that a certain kind of light can't get through the filter and a certain kind of light does, 50-50-ish. And you know when you turn the two of them opposite, that way you would eliminate everything, because one filter blocks all the, let's say, white ones, and the other filter blocks all the black ones, if you want to use horizontal as black and vertical as white. So you've got to concede if you put a third filter in, okay, made of the same material at the opposing angle between the two, that somehow that third filter, that other filter, must be fixing the stuff that comes through in some way to make it get through the other filter. It's the only logical conclusion. So why is nobody saying it? Why do some silly, like I said, the quantum mechanic answer isn't an answer. They don't have an answer. Nobody has that. No one's answering the damn question. And it seems the question is easily answered by saying the filter changes the orientation of the photons. Either you could say it takes everything going this way and flips it to doing this. So you could say an angle flip, a side flip would probably make the filter work. So if you understood that it did like a phase shift or something where it took everything that went in this way and switched it this way and everything that went in this way and switched it that way, you could sort of understand that if you put a secondary filter and it switched one side over to the other side and therefore made it visible to the third filter, that might work. Or you just say that any light that was a strong angle got fixed to a better angle, and then the light that was really close to vertical got pushed to vertical. And then when you put the third filter in, you're pushing everything to a better angle, and it makes it for the third filter. It has to be something like that. But I'm just amazed that this person would think that the following video by Robert DeCinti, okay, electrical engineer, provides a brilliantly simple explanation. Now he says it's brilliantly simple. What explanation was in the video? I'm sorry, I just didn't see the explanation. All I saw him do was chart the amount of light that gets through when the filters are in different angles. I didn't see him explain how the light gets through. I mean, again, you know, the Miles Mathis guy is basically saying cosine function, but he's saying it has something to do with spin. So he thinks the photons are spinning clockwise and counterclockwise, and their spin gets destroyed, and that's what makes the photon invisible. Not an explanation. Brilliantly simple explanation. No, there's no explanation. An experiment that demonstrates. There's no experiment. I mean, we already know what the effect is. So his experiment just shows us the effect. We already know what the effect is. How did he demonstrate how it functions, how it works? How to gather the empirical data that solves it? He didn't gather any data that solves it. We already know the solution isn't in showing. Like, I could show you the two slit experiment. Did I explain how it works? Because I showed it to you? I mean, I could take a magnifying glass and look really close at it or something. Did I explain what's causing it by doing that? No. I just don't know how people can say this crap. So, I mean, I did ask, solves it, quote, how so? Question mark. Where does it explain by adding a filter makes more light pass? So I got no response, so I'm going to delete his comment. Because it's crap. Linking to a video that explains nothing. Alright, now the other weird thing about this Dissenty guy, which makes him like a lot of these dissidents, because the Jeff Yee guy has a little bit of this. He wants to change physics because he thinks we need to find super energy sources. And so the only way to save mankind is to find super energy, and therefore let's change physics so we can have super energy. Which doesn't seem to be quite right. So the Dissenty guy is doing the same thing. He's saying, we can't get off this planet. We need to go 500 times the speed of light or we're doomed. Yes, you are doomed, idiot. The universe doesn't, it doesn't care about the mold growing on Earth, right? It doesn't say, oh, we must preserve mold wherever mold grows in the universe. We must somehow preserve it by breaking the physical laws. No, the galaxy's going to explode, the sun's going to explode, all kinds of stuff's going to explode. We're not going to survive any of that shit because we're never going to be able to go fast enough to get the hell out of here in time. We can get on our little ship and we can, even if we could go at the speed of light, we're still in trouble. So forget about it. It ain't happening. But it's just kind of ludicrous, right? I mean, he thinks that new physics means we'll be able to access, we'll be able to go 500 times the speed of light. I mean, it's retarded. Alright, so nothing I can do. Great definition of mass in particular, the ability to acquire momentum. Until the push theory, something similar to that definition has to be right. Excellent. Okay, I think I already read that one. Last comment didn't make it. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Okay, we did that already. Just carried out an experiment. Okay, did that one. I'm refusing to believe the results of my own experiment. I need to repeat the experiment in several different configurations. Okay, so this is the spinning disk thing. So I just pointed out that you're just creating a vacuum. The vacuum is stronger than the magnetic levitation. Yes, my gravity power comes from blocking pushes. Yes, but gravity power comes from blocking pushes. Once you have blocked 100% of the pushes, then increasing mass shouldn't affect gravity anymore. Yes. Look, we've just been talking past each other. We're saying the same thing. I've always said that gravity is a finite force. That's why I'm kind of ridiculing the infinite gravity well of Einstein, is because yes, the reality is you can't create mega, super, ultra gravity. There's only so much pressure, and once you've used it, you've used it. So, but see, it's a sort of question because you have to understand how the pressure is additive. See, I mean, it'd be very hard for me to make the argument. Let's say I had 1 million elephants standing on top of my head. It'd be pretty hard to make the argument that, well, if I add another elephant, it won't matter. Right? So, in some senses, the gravity can keep increasing, sort of, because where it's going to affect things, that is, where it's going to cause more pressure, is being converted. So you're converting gravitational pressure into, again, chemical or atomic pressure. But whether or not you could actually get to some absolute amount of pressure, that's the problem, right? So even if you did do that, all you can do is spread the pressure over a greater area. But I don't think you could make the actual pressure any higher. So yes, I would still agree that once you get to a completely black shadow, you can't get any blacker. Okay, acorn guy. This muscle thing is back again. Damn it. I have to find a different chair, I guess. Or I'll just sit like a hunchback or something. Great explanation on magnetism on the video. DraftScience magnetism versus Ken Wheeler hyperism. I think we already did this. This is an explanation I think most physicists and chemists agree with. I don't know where you go. What are you getting that? Who are you talking about? Clearly they don't. They don't even they don't even understand that the forces, well, they do if they do the math, because Maxwell's math, if you really look at it, you can see that it's talking about pressure that goes in a straight vectors. I mean, it's a vector math, and the vectors are straight lines, like the sun radiating energy, and like Einstein's convergence. For, you know, Einstein's math is sort of based on Maxwell's math, and that's the convergence is made out of the same straight line force. So they concede that a magnet's straight line force when they have to be explicit. But that seems to be the only time when anybody pays any attention, because the rest of the time, even the physicists are implying that stuff comes out of one end of the magnet and swoops around and goes back in the other end, which it doesn't do. Oh, damn, sorry. I'm in pain for no good reason. This is an explanation. Okay, anyway, could you explain a bit more in depth the difference in atomic structure, of the red bits versus the blue bits? That would be retarded. How could I possibly do that? So again, I mean, people, you know, I don't know. How do you think I could possibly do that? Well, what do you think? I have some special giant instrument for doing these things? Like somehow I can see exactly what charge is made out of? I mean, why there's a difference? I can't tell you why there's a difference. I mean, it could be one's square and one's circular. One's a triangle. One takes keys that go, you know, that are round keys, and the other one takes keys that are square keys. You know, square peg, round holes. Who knows? Who knows what the mechanism is? I mean, I can come up with a million ways of saying, yes, it's one thing has vertical lines it's made out of, and the other thing has little holes. You know, so I can come up with a million ways to say they're the same, but fundamentally different. Okay, right? Same, but fundamentally different. Okay. Could you explain now? No, I can't. I.e., ionization differences. We're talking about the force. The force isn't ionized. Atoms are ionized. Atoms can have an extra electron, a less electron, all that kind of stuff. The force doesn't do any of this crap. Polarization differences. Well, that's in the atom. I mean, I've already drawn the pictures of that. I've already explained the atom. If you increase the distance between the proton and the electron, you could sort of understand that an observer over here, looking at it, okay, the closer I bring the electron, the more negative this whole thing looks. The closer I bring it to the proton, the more positive this whole thing looks. Alright, differences as you mentioned. Also, I'm not well versed on magnets. What materials other than iron are commonly used? Well, obviously neodymium is used, and it's put into a... The magnet itself is not porcelain. Yeah, what's the word for ceramic? So it's put in like a clay base, and you know, that's how they make it. But yes, neodymium, and then there's whatever it is. I don't know what it's called, magnetite or something. There's actually some substance that's magnet. And what is the chemical or physical process used to create them? You know, I don't really want to get into all that crap. That's really not... I mean, the physics or the chemistry of making a magnet, it just has to do with you heat it, okay, stir everything up, make everything kind of loose. You know, all the little magnets inside of the iron, all the little atoms, you make them loose. And then as you're cooling it, you put a huge magnetic field on it, and then they stay in the position. When they get frozen, you know, when they get solid, they're stuck. And that's how you make a magnet. And you break a magnet the same way. You heat it, or you hit it really hard, and you just knock everything crooked again. Alright, some idiot, Chamoney1, oh, I can take that seriously. You know nothing. Well, obviously I know a lot more than you. Please stop making videos. Honestly embarrassing. And you don't think this comment is embarrassing? I mean, again, I'll just point out, why don't you post a picture of your whore mother and your retarded father? You know, I mean, you're talking absolute shit on the internet. I mean, you got nothing. You have no argument here. You think your father would be proud? Oh yeah, my son's being a stupid fucking troll on the internet who says empty things like stop molesting kids or some other kind of dopey thing on videos, you know, where he doesn't actually make an argument. And he has such an inverted penis, he's afraid to actually do anything face to face. He's such a coward. You know, he can't walk up to somebody face to face and insult them because he's got nothing. Because he is a fucking inverted dick, ugly, fat pig. And he knows as soon as he, you know, tries to, you know, if he was to, you know, somehow manifest enough courage to actually fight fair, he knows he'd lose in a minute. Fucking cowards. Alright, hostile day. Great. Well, not a great comment, but whatever. I know gravity has to do with mass, but I'm using huge as a proxy. Okay, so we already did this. So we already agree on this subject, so I don't see the point of it. So I think I just delete it, because we already agree. You can't get any darker than a dark shadow. That's right. We get to completely black, it's completely black. Alright, good boat analogy. Yes, yes, the truth should be objective. However, finding the truth is like filtering a whole beach of sand to find a single grain of gold. Well, I'm going to argue that it's not, frankly. I think truth is glaring. I mean, it's you know, it's a really big boner. The truth just sticks up, says, here I am. So I could argue that the truth of evolution is so obvious. I mean, it's glaring, and yet people are denying it. The truth of push makes more sense than pull. Glaring. The fact that Einstein didn't really do much with this whole bent space theory. I mean, he really just said, let's try to imagine the inverse square law in 2 dimensions. That's all he did. It's a nothing contribution in a way. It doesn't explain anything. It's a glaring fact that it really doesn't add any value in terms of understanding the mechanism. Particle wave. Stupid. Glaringly stupid. Dualities. So then you get into paradoxes and the rest. So I don't buy this argument that the truth is hard to find. People don't want the truth. They want the hyperborealoids. They want all this swirly mystery. And frankly, you're doing some of that, Robert. Sorry. Sense of propriety. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. Okay, I just said exactly what I said. You just said, yes, exactly. So we agree. You can't create any darker shadow. That is what I was saying. Right, but let's point out again that the darkest shadow you can create is very, very dark. Okay. Maximum universal pressure is clearly an intense pressure, center of the sun kind of pressure. You're correct to use mass instead of size. Your word is more accurate. Yes, okay, we know that. Might a proton, so this is another weird one, might a proton act as a shield to the electron? Electrons don't need shields in the first place. They need to interact, but I mean, it's clearly the other way around in a sense. But yeah, I just don't. I can't understand for what purpose. Shield for what? We already know the electron and the proton are attracted to each other because they, in my opinion, are doing an inverse thing. You know, the one's releasing the pressure the other one feels. So they're relieving each other's pain, so to speak. they're curing each other's disease. And so in between them is no pressure, so they move into the low pressure. For example, the proton protects the electron from collisions. I just don't even understand how you get anything like that. Why? Clearly the electron, for anything to happen in the universe, pretty much, electrons have to collide with shit. That's how the world. That's how the universe changes. The universe doesn't change unless electrons hit things. That would push the electron away from the proton. Again, so you're using gravity, and as I've sort of pointed out, gravity doesn't work inside of atoms. It just doesn't. So yeah, there'd be the orbits would all collapse. There's no, you know, it just wouldn't work as a mechanism. It doesn't work as a mechanism. That's why I'm telling you it's magnetism. And obviously magnetism, we've seen levitation with magnetism. We see how it works. It's got an attractive and a repulsive force, and I've explained all of that. So I don't know. I guess you just haven't watched the videos. Go watch the magnetism videos. I don't know what to say. I took chemistry class, but once you change the assumption about one thing, there is a domino effect. I'm not sure where the cascade of changes in the description of reality will end once the dominoes fall. Yeah, well, that's the catch of it. And clearly their idea of this, you know, the shared electron, okay, like the photon having this funny shape. As a kid, I said, no, can't be the right answer. I was also pretty convinced, okay, that when they told me that atoms share electrons, but they share them by doing this figure 8 thing, or some manifestation of it, I said, how can that fucking work? I mean, when the electron's way over here, how can they be sharing it, and how can they both be needing to be next to each other? Because when it's over here, why doesn't this atom just run away and say, I got the electron, ha 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 ha? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the atoms, once they have the electron, aren't they just going to say, I'm getting that, you know, I don't need you anymore, you son of a bitch. Bye. I mean, aren't they just going to leave? It just doesn't make much sense. So the moving electron thing never really worked for me. And so I always kind of thought that, well, no, when they're sharing it, it has to stay in the sharing position. You know, you can't share something that's not staying in the sharing position. So I think once you give up on this notion that all this shit is swirling all over the crap place, you can see how atoms stick together so much better. It just makes so much more sense how it's stuck, how they stick. They stick because they are sharing something that's not going anywhere. Okay. Let's see. Just curious. You bring magnet near the screen of an old TV tube. So this is how much damage the pseudoscientists do. You know, these little fakers with their little silly experiments. Because people see this shit and think, oh, it means something. No, it doesn't mean anything. If there is no rotation happening in the magnetic field, why does the image rotate clockwise? Well, in the first place, it doesn't rotate. Okay, so if you put a magnet into the screen, the image doesn't move once you leave the magnet steady. Okay, so I keep the magnet there and I don't move it, nothing swirls. And when I move it, all I do is change the size of it, so it's not really swirling. But clearly, you're not getting it, right? The electron is charged. It's magnetic, essentially. It will run away from the north pole of the magnet and it'll run towards the south pole. That's what electrons do. So depending on what pole you're putting in front of it, you're going to change, obviously, how the electron's going to be deflected. It'll be deflected exactly the opposite way. And so now we're just trying to understand, why does it deflect one way? Well, because the image you're seeing is a trace. Okay, the electrons aren't coming as a group to the screen and saying, let's make an image, right? They're coming to the screen in one location at a time in a raster way. They're going across the screen like this. So each second, or whatever it is, 60 times a second or so, they go across, well, maybe it's 200 times. I can't remember what the number is. Well, anyway, certain number of times a second. the electron goes across the entire screen like this. So when you put the magnet in there, right, the electron that's coming at the electron's coming at the magnetic field, and the trace gets deflected. So you can see that each individual electron will be bent when it's repulsive away, and then when it's attractive in. And that's just dictating where the pixels will end up being seen. But you have to understand the electron's coming in this way, and that it goes across the screen, right to left, right to left, right to left, right to left. That's why. So again, it doesn't look, what you're seeing is again a distortion. It's not a representation. It's a complex reflection of the reality, not a simple reflection of reality. But anyway, all right, there is no mass in the field. So this is Robert Ritchie. There is no mass in the field. So again, this field word is just rubbish in my opinion. There's no light field, right? So when the lights are off, nobody thinks, oh, there's a photon field and I'm walking through the photon field. Nobody thinks anything like that, right? They know that when the light's on, there's shit flying out of the bulb. And when the light's off, there's no shit flying out of the bulb. Right? That's how you think about it, isn't it? Realistically, do people really think that, oh, yeah, there's this wave ocean, and when the light's off, there's no waves in the ocean, but I'm walking through the ocean? You know, is that what you really think? Anyway, there's no mass in the field. So again, there's no, the field is radiation, just like the radiation from a radioactive isotope. The radiation coming off a magnet, it's the same shit. It's the same little force bits moving the speed of light, and it's coming out in little straight lines, just like the radiation from an isotope. There's no field. There's either stuff or no stuff. All right, and therefore there is no energy loss. So again, how does that even make any sense? There's stuff with no mass that causes effects. It hits stuff and moves it, but it has no mass. I mean, you're just doing regular physics' bullshit. I have zero mass momentum particles. Fuck you, you do. All right, every magnet has a magnetic circuit. What the fuck is that? Sorry, but I mean, I really don't want to be hostile, but you can't. You could type the words magnetic circuit and not realize that isn't that just made up rubbish words? Where the fuck? Where I didn't see that in my basic education, the magnetic circuit stuff. What are you talking about, the magnetic circuit? What the hell is that? Except made up crap. What experiment proved the magnetic circuit? So anyway, like I said, I don't mean to be hostile, but I'm just saying, you know, you can't, you know that Ken Wheeler's full of shit when he says, three-dimensional hyperboloid, blah, 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 but somehow you don't know that magnetic circuit is shit too? Come on. Alright, that's all we got, I guess. Maybe we'll go to a holiday video, and there should be some crap on that. I mean, crappy comments. The naysayers and shit should be harassing him pretty good by now. How dare you say there was anything rational in what he said? What's in the boxes, or do you know? Oh, see, they're right on subject. These people are, whew, they are really, you know, right there. Alright, see if this video has anything on it. Not too many views for the holiday. 3 comments, but they're not here. Yeah. Sort by, yes, sort them by comment, please. Yes. Oh, they're still not there. Bummer. Alright. So this isn't working too well. Let's try video number 3. I don't know why you're saying rowers bad.
So I'm live again.
I think rowers was a great idea. All right, 0. So we're out of luck here. So nothing. I thought there might be something to pick at, but nothing there. All right, so let's do a quick refresh. I don't think there's anything new here, but just in case there's some kind of great new stuff. Nope, nothing new. All right, so we'll have to wait till the next time. So I don't know where I'm going next. I mean, I wanted to, I did a little bit of fiddling around with the polarization idea, but it's really hard to draw it. To illustrate that it's not about what's going through the whole filter. It's just each little photon goes through the filter, and the thing that makes things complicated is this thing, right? Because if you put a center on this, then you end up with a line that's going this way, and this one ends up, it gets confusing because there's a bottom, a right top and a left bottom, or ends up being the same things. It's kind of confusing. But so all you're really talking about is just lines, and you got to make sure you're just talking about lines, polarization lines. And really all that is, as I've explained it, I think all polarization is how much the photons, the quanta, the little bits that make up the photon, how well they're aligned with each other. So if they're, a little bit out of alignment, that's their polarization. If they're coming in, they're a little bit not perfectly right behind each other. I think that's the correct answer. So the light that, the photons are doing this the wrong way for the jail bars, they get broken. And so you don't have the frequency anymore because one of the little quanta got wiped out. Think it hit the bar. So there's only 2 left, and they're a much wider frequency. So no visible light. Alright, I think that's enough. I mean, the interesting thing is that when you take visible light, and if you did just pull, one of the, its frequency is, a certain frequency, and if you actually did pull every other bit out of it, you'd end up with infrared light, invisible light, heat. So it sort of makes sense in a lot of circumstances. That would make sense, that you convert visible light into infrared photons. So breaking a photon doesn't break it, just converts it into a piece of light we don't see. Alright, that's probably enough now then. But you can't really break, you might be able to break blue light into red light. So if you could get to ultraviolet light and pull out one, what you have then might be, see, it would be all the way on the edge of infrared, so it still might be invisible rather than visible. Close though. I have to say, that's another thing to play with. So many subjects here, and my explanations are just so much better than conventional physics, and yet here we are 7 years later still having to beat these dead horses and try to go over this simple idea. Push simple, push simple, pull not simple. Push elemental, pull not elemental. And again, the truth is elusive. The truth is hard to see. I can't see the truth for all the confusion. What confusion? I mean, again, push. Simple as you can get. Pull. Come here. Is that simple? I'll yell, come here at it. There. Pull. Just not an elemental mechanism. And again, not an elusive truth. Not elusive. I'm just saying, it's just clearly not hard. A tiny bit of thinking about push and pull. Answer arrived at. Shut up. Okay. Some things do behave. The shut up principle is elemental. Not really. Alright, so anyway, I'm done anyway. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything else. If I have something else, I'll come back. I'll actually risk ruining this video because it's not much of a video. So I'll risk ruining it by allowing it to stay unfinished. Alright, I guess we'll finish up here. I did watch this Perpetual Motion, half of it. Well, no, 1/3 of it. Well, 1/4 of it. And then it just got too silly. But I mean, you know, just the title silly. Negative mass. And what do? They just pretend, oh, well, if positive masses are attracted to each other, the negative mass would be repelled. I mean, they just turn it into charge as if it's all the same function. I mean, it just demonstrates how they don't even understand how anything works. And you know, they create these inanely silly concepts. But even just the whole idea of negative mass. You know, they're so used to just creating all this imaginary anti-stuff. You know, the dark matter, all that. It just keeps. They're so used to just making stuff up that they think they can make up something like negatives. You know, it's like negative space or something. It's just, well, how retarded are they allowed to get? Who would even waste the neurons to even say for a second, let's talk about negative mass? Like that's somehow a possibility. It's so fucking stupid. You know, it's like negative wetness. What? Negative wetness? Oh, that's dryness. No, I mean it's just, you know, it's just no point. It's just so stupid. Oh God, this is so hopeless. This is a hopeless project. People are just too stupid. It's just they're too stupid. Oh, fucking hell. I am going to kill somebody soon. Probably. I just realized there's a comment missing here somewhere. It's just kind of irritating. It's not in the spam folder. It was, and I took it out of there, but it's not in the regular listings either. So I guess I'll have to go to the video somewhere. So the video on the electric boom thing, he was defending, you know, arguing that the electric boom guy conceded he was wrong, and you know, Faraday's law wins or something. And it was just so. I mean, but this is the problem with people who don't make it clear that they disagree. They play some kind of let's be amicable, and you know, you lose sight of what's at issue, because that's clearly not what happened. And you know, just for people who do remember the controversy, I mean, I'll just point out Faraday's law doesn't work just as much as the loop rule doesn't work unless you put the probe wires in exactly certain positions. So if I move the probe wires, Faraday's law doesn't work either, because I get different voltages. And that's what was demonstrated clearly, that if you want to get any voltage you want to get, you can get by just turning the probe wires. I mean, clearly neither rule works if you don't understand that's what's happening to the probe wires, that they're part of the circuit. So anyway, just amazingly, you know, so people are just so belligerently, fanatically defensive of their bullshit. I mean, if they've grown an attachment to a stupid pull world, and then that's all they're going to do is find rationalizations for pull. Just, I mean, just fuck. I don't know. Nobody there. It's just such a spammy shit world. Anyway, okay, now I'm going to end this video. If I haven't already gotten it backwards, what's pause and what's on and what's off, who knows? But anyway, so till the next time, such, we're done, finished, the end.